Dear learners, I'm starting with the definition of sustainable development, meeting the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. Okay, if you have to tell simply, don't exploit the resources. Okay, the resources should be that beneficial to the in the future generation also. Actually, this was the one of the definition mentioned in the Brundtland report in 1987. That when the word sustainable development, that it has started, first they have focused upon the environmental development only, then after the that various meetings and conventions, and they have identified that we can't improve the environmental only, we have to improve the socio economic, political and environmental development. If all the four development, that all the four sector work together, then only that we can attain the sustainable development. If you have a political development, but if you doesn't have economic or that economic socio development, then it won't be a possible. So you have to be work hard for the socio economic, political and environmental development, and it also maintaining a pace of economic development. Okay, that has to be protect the long term value of the government. Unfortunately, that rapid growth of countries had resulted in critical damage to environment, which is a global common. If you have noticed, after the globalization in the various countries, that entire universe, that even if you notice in India, we are undergoing lot of industrial development, lot of that infrastructure development, lot of development towards the various critical sector. So these are the things also, it is making a critical damage to the environment. So a worldwide cooperation is needed for that. Okay, it is difficult for one or the few nations to ensure the sustainable use of the global common. It is only one country or the other country or the country can individually manage the situation. It is not possible. So when it comes to development or something, it should be a borderless. Okay, so for that reason there was a need for a worldwide conventions and worldwide cooperation also. At the same time, one should not forget that historically it is the developed country which followed energy intensive, that energy intensive growth part leading to more damage to global commons. Developing countries are particularly the less developed countries, that have contributed the less to the environmental damage. So it is very crucial to have international convention which could explore the that various solutions for economic growth, environmental protection and social equality. Like this word sustainable development used in 1987. So in this session we will discuss about before 1987 and after 1987, what are the various international conventions happened to protect the environmental and all. By the term international convention, we mean an agreement or treaty different countries, that which most of the international convention, treaty or agreement used to happen at the umbrella of the United Nations. Till date, many of the international convention has taken place. Various issues, themes, human rights, tariffs, trade, high seas and sustainable development. Also, that many things are there, climate change also. There was a 3 major convention has happened so far. One is that United Nations Conference on Environment Development, that is UNCED of 1992. It held in Rio de Janeiro. Popularly it is known as the Rio Summit or Earth Summit 1992. Then after that, World Summit on Sustainable Development, that is WSSD of 2002. It held in Johannesburg, South Africa. It is called Rio Plus 10 or Earth Summit 2002. And after that, United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, that is UNCSD of 2012 held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, that is Rio Plus 20 or Earth Summit 2012. So these are the 3 conferences has happened till now, that is the Earth Summit 1992, Earth Summit 2002, Earth Summit 2012. There was a first historical conference, that is United Nations Conference on Human Environment, which is held in Stockholm in 1972. The conference called upon governments and people to apply common efforts for the preservation of environment for the benefit of human beings all over the globe. So the major outcome of Stockholm Conference in 1972 was the first establishment of the United Nations Environment Program. It became the global environmental authority for setting a global environmental agenda and advocating global environment, as well as the creation of the number of multilateral environmental agreement also. So after the UN Stockholm Conference, it was realized that neither the high income countries in the north or nor the low income countries in the south, they were willing to give up on the resource based on the economic growth that they were focused upon. So this form of economic growth was unsustainable, and many other things has happened due to this kind of development, that is pollution, acid rain, deforestation, desertification and destruction of the ozone layer and all. So there was an urgent need, was felt development concept that would allow for reconciling the economic development with the environmental protection. Earlier, that's what in the initially I told you that economic development should be that should be with the phase of socio-political and environmental development. If we have a if the industry development or the infrastructure development have happened without focus upon the environment, then it would lead to a disaster. So that's why that these kind of a pollution, acid rain, deforestation. So there are various environmental concerns were happening. Therefore, what happened in 1983 that Secretary General of the UN asked the former Prime Minister of Norway, Harlem Brundtland, to create an organization independent of the United Nations, so that that they can focus upon the environmental and development problem as well as the solution. So this organization is called the Brundtland Commission, or formally we can say that World Commission on Environment and Development. So the Brundtland Commission was dissolved in 1987 after the releasing the report called Our Common Future. The Brundtland report, it's a kind of a first report in addressing the need for economic development without harming the environment. We need environmental development also, we need economic development also, industrial development, various development also, but at the same time it should not harm the environment. This Brundtland report suggested the long-term environmental strategies for achieving sustainable development by the year 2000 and beyond through the cooperation between the countries, that at different stages of economic and social development, taking into account interrelationship between peoples, resources, environment and development. After releasing the report, the Brundtland Commission called for an international meeting, which were concrete initiatives, and they have mapped out various goals also. Therefore, that United Nations General Assembly for the United Nations Conference on Environmental Development with primary goals of socio-economic development with preventing environmental deterioration also. So, and after this UNCED conference has been took place in 1992, it is a Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. After this conference, various things has been happened. Earth Summit 1992. In 1992, that United Conference on Environment and Development took place in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It is also called the Rio Summit or Rio Conference, or most popularly it used to be called as a Earth Summit. Various outcomes of that treaties, political declarations and action plans have been made as great significance also. In the Rio Declaration, they said that Rio Declaration on Environment Development, it is a kind of a political declaration of principles on environment and development, and they have given Agenda 21. Agenda 21 is a blueprint for implementing sustainable development. So how to go for the implementing sustainable development, and the Statement of Forest Principle. It is a non-binding authoritative statement of principles, and another one is that United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It is a kind of a multilateral treaty, and last one is that Convention on Biological Diversity. It is also a multilateral treaty. Rio Declaration on Environment and Development, it is a kind of, as I already mentioned, that it is a kind of a political declaration. In order to establish equitable global partnership and cooperation among states, key sectors, and people, it came up with the 27 principles, some of the few important principles. In that political principle or political declaration, they mentioned that human beings are at the center of concern for sustainable development, and they are entitled to healthy and productive life in harmony with nature. Even we have mentioned in our fundamental rights in our constitution also, we should have a that healthy and productive life in a harmony with nature. In order to achieve sustainable development as a high quality of our life, people states should reduce and eliminate unsustainable pattern of production and consumption. The special situation and needs of developing countries, particularly if you look into that, the least developing country and those mostly environmentally vulnerable shall be given special priority. Women have a vital role in environmental management and development. Their full participation is therefore essential to achieve sustainable development. And finally, indigenous people and their communities and other local communities have a vital role in environmental management and development because of the knowledge and traditional practices. Next one is that Agenda 21. It was basically a non-binding action plan of United Nations regarding sustainable development. Here 21 is referred to the 21st century for preparing for the 21st century. This action plan was planned to be executed at local, national and the global levels by multilateral organization and individual governments around the world. So successful implementation was primarily made the that responsibility of the governments and the national strategies, plans, policies, process, where these are the things were very crucial to achieving this, and international cooperation was expected to support and supplement such national affairs also. In the Agenda 21, Section 1 captured the socio-economic dimension like combating poverty, changing consumption patterns, promoting health, achieving more sustainable population and sustainable settlement in decision making. And section 2 covered the conservation and management of our resources and development like atmospheric protection, combating deforestation, protecting fragile environment, conservation of biological diversity, control of pollution and management of biotechnology and radioactive. And the same way section 3 covered the strengthening the role of major groups like children, youth, women, non-governmental organization, local authorities, business and industries and workers, and strengthening the role of the indigenous people and the farmers. And section 4 captured the scientific know-how, technology, transfer of education, international institution. Section 1 is focused upon the socio-economic issue, and then section 2 is focused upon the environmental issues. Section 3 is focused upon the vulnerable group and various network of institutions. They are strengthening the indigenous people. And section 4 is that it's a kind of a knowledge generation kind of a technique. These are the things were mentioned in Agenda 21. And then next one is that United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, that is UNFCCC. It was an international treaty to address the problem of climate change, and it opened for the signature in 1992 Earth Summit. It acknowledges that human activities have caused substantial increase in the atmospheric concentration of greenhouse gases, resulting in climate change. It also noted that the largest share of historical and current global emissions of greenhouse gases has originated in developing countries and all. So that way, that objective of UNFCCC was achieve stabilization of greenhouse concentration at the atmosphere in a given time frame, so that ecosystem can naturally adapt to climate change. Last one is that Convention on Biological Diversity. The importance of biological resources in economic and social development of present and future generations was realized by the world community. In that Convention on Biological Diversity, it has a three major objectives. One is that the conservation of biological diversity and the sustainable use of components of biological diversity and the fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising out of the utilization of genetic resources. So here you can see that environmental being a global common, it is difficult to rather impossible for one or the other nations to ensure it is a sustainable uses. That way you need a worldwide cooperation also. At the same time, it is the developing countries have more contributed damage to the developing and the least developing country. Here it is very crucial to international convention to explore the win-win solutions of economic growth and environmental protection and the equality on the one hand, and assigning the some common and differentiated responsibility between the developed and the developing countries on the other. So it is a kind of a, that it would be a critical situation. You have to manage economic growth also, at the same time you have to mention the environmental protection also, at the same time it would be social equality also. Thank you for listening. Thank you.